This week, as the President presents his annual address to the new 38th Congress, we get to see just how much has changed since last year. We also get to hear from the rebels on what they think of the year. This isn't to say the week is dominated by speeches in Congress. We also get to see action on the high seas, including a chase. And of course, the return to Knoxville, where the pursuit of Longstreet is on. First, let's go to a tragedy. On the 6th, USS Oaxaca meets a sad fate. This ironclad has been serving its country nobly off the shore of Charleston Harbor when, during a storm in the early morning, it took water through a hatch in the pipe. The crew jumped to action trying to beach the vessel and signaled for help. The ship had just taken on extra ammunition and stored it in the front. The bow began to sink and the stern rose in the air. Time stopped for a bit, but soon the Oaxaca was filled with water and below the waves. 31 of its sailors went down with it. The next day, the first Confederate Congress convenes for the 4th time. President Jefferson Davis has a report for them on the war, and he's horrified by the state of the CSA. The necessity for legislative action arisen out of the important events that have marked the interval since your adjournment, and the desire to have the aid of your counsel on other matters of grave public interest render your presence at this time more than ordinarily welcome. Grave reverses befell our arms soon after your departure from Richmond. Early in June, our strongholds at Vicksburg and Port Hudson, together with their entire garrisons, capitulated to the combined land and naval forces of the enemy. The important interior position of Jackson next fell to their temporary possession. Our unsuccessful assault upon the post at Helena was followed at a later period by the invasion of Arkansas. The retreat of our army from Little Rock gave to the enemy the control of the important valley in which it is situated. I regret to inform you that there has been no improvement in the state of our relations with foreign countries since my message in January last. On the contrary, there has been a still greater divergence in the conduct of European nations from that practical impartiality which also deserves the name of neutrality. Their actions in some cases has assumed a character positively unfriendly. The state of the public finances is such as to demand your earliest and most earnest attention. I need hardly say that a prompt and efficacious remedy for the present condition of the currency is necessary for the successful performance of the functions of government. Nor has less unrelenting warfare been waged by those pretend friends of human rights and liberties against the unfortunate Negroes. Though the last year entertained of an early termination of the war has not been realized, the patriotism of the people has proved equal to every sacrifice demanded by their country's need. We have been united as a people never were united under like circumstances before. God has blessed us with success disproportionate to our means, and under his divine favor our labors must at last be crowned with the reward due to men who have given all they possess to the righteous defense of their inalienable rights, their homes, and their altars. Jefferson Davis. On the 7th, the 38th U.S. Congress convenes in its marble halls. The Senate is thoroughly controlled by Republicans who have picked up one extra seat, while the House has seen the Republicans become merely a plurality. While Davis is all doom and gloom, Lincoln has a much better speech prepared.
Fellow citizens of the Senate and House of Representatives, another year of health and no sufficiently abundant harvest has passed. For these, and especially for the improved condition of our natural affairs, our renewed and profoundest gratitude to God is due. We remain in peace and friendship with foreign powers. The efforts of disloyal citizens of the United States to involve us in foreign wars to aid in inexcusable insurrection have been unavailing. Of those who were slaves at the beginning of the rebellion, full 100,000 are now in the United States military service, about one half of which number actually bear arms in their ranks, thus giving the double advantage of taking so much labor for the insurgent cause and supplying the places which otherwise must be filled with so many white men. So far assessed, it is difficult to say that they are not as good soldiers as any. Looking now to the present and future, with reference to a resumption of the natural authority within the states wherein that authority has been suspended, I have thought fit to issue a proclamation, a copy of which is herewith transmitted. On examination of this proclamation, it will appear, as is believed, that nothing will be attempted beyond what is amply justified by the Constitution. True, the form of an oath is given, but no man is coerced to take it. Man is only promised a pardon in case he voluntarily takes the oath. The Constitution authorizes the executive to grant or withhold the pardon at his own absolute discretion. This includes the power to grant on terms, as is fully established by judicial and other authorities. It is also proffered that if any of the states named as state government shall be in the mode prescribed set up, such government shall be recognized and guaranteed by the United States, and that under it the state shall, on the constitutional conditions, be protected against invasion and domestic violence. constitutional obligation of the United States to guarantee to every state in the Union a Republican form of government and to protect the states in the cases stated is explicit and full. But why tender the benefits of this provision only to a state government set up in this particular way? This section of the Constitution contemplates a case when the element within a state favorable to Republican government in the Union may be too feeble for an opposite and a hostile element external to or even within the state. Such are precisely the case with which we are now dealing. The movements by state action for emancipation in several of the states not included in the Emancipation Proclamation are matters of profound gratulation. While I do not repeat in detail, which I have heretofore so earnestly urged upon this subject, my general views and feelings remain unchanged. I trust that Congress will omit no further opportunity of aiding these important steps to a great consummation. In the midst of other cares, however important, we must not lose sight of the fact that the war power is still our main reliance. To that power alone can we look yet for time to give confidence to the people in the contested regions that the insurgent power will not again overrun them. Until that confidence shall be established, little can be done anywhere for what is called reconstruction. Hence our chiefest care must still be directed to the Army and Navy, who have thus far borne their harder parts so nobly and well. It may be esteemed fortunate that, given the greatest efficiency to these indispensable arms, we'd also honorably recognize the gallant men, from commander to sentinel, who compose them, and to whom, more than to others, the world must stand indebted for the house of freedom, disenthralled, regenerated, enlarged, and perpetuated.
After such a grandiose speech, what is there to talk about other than hijinks? The Canadian colony of Halifax, I promise I'm going somewhere, has seen a boom of Confederate sympathizers throughout this war. The trade between the secessionist states to the outside world flows through the city, and businesses there accept Confederate currency, and one even flies the rebel flag. It's the perfect spot for copperheads to stay at. Vernon Locke is a Canadian who fears the increasing power of the United States, arranges for John C. Braine and other Confederate sympathizers to capture a Union vessel, bring it to Halifax for safety, and to use it as a blockade runner. Braine and 16 of his men buy tickets for the Chesapeake, currently in harbor at New York. They board it as regular men, but once it reaches the coast of Maine on the 7th, the copperheads draw their weapons and attempt their mutiny. The crew won't go down without a fight and open fire. Braine returns fire, killing 1 and wounding 3. Locke takes over the ship on a small colony island, tries to bring the ship to New Brunswick, but neutrality law forbade the ships to be in these waters. The locals won't let the rebels take on coal, forcing the vessel to head towards Nova Scotia. On the 10th, it arrives in Shelburne, and 2 Union vessels are in hot pursuit, USS Malvern and USS Dakota. Locke's days are numbered. Now for the Knoxville campaign. The 4th saw Longstreet marching towards Rogersville, Tennessee, just as Grant's men were approaching. On the 6th, General William T. Sherman arrived in Knoxville with the Army of the Tennessee, officially ending the siege. The same day, Longstreet was in Rutledge, Tennessee, striking distance from the cavalry. Sherman returns to Chattanooga, only leaving General Gordon Granger behind with the 4th Corps. On the 9th, Major General Ambrose Burnside is relieved of command. I know this is shocking. The man just rehabilitated himself after the failure of Fredericksburg. He won the siege and is now being pushed out. This removal isn't about Knoxville. It's about the arrest of Vallandigham and the Battle of Chickamauga. Burnside has failed to keep the political situation stable, instead arresting copperheads, and failed to reinforce General Rosecrans at Chickamauga. Even Burnside wants to leave, not liking his treatment by the press and wanting time off. He's replaced by his longtime friend and chief of staff, General John G. Parke. Parke pursues Longstreet with the 8,000 infantry and 4,000 cavalry he has. But on the 9th, as the rebels reach Rogersville, he has the 4,000 cavalry under General Shackelford go on alone. Now that Longstreet has reached safety, he's left to fall into a deep depression. Longstreet, God, what a pitiful state he is in, turns on his friends and commanders, blaming them for the failure at Knoxville, just like he had done previously at Seven Pines. Hood's division under General Micah Jenkins has seen numerous infighting between General Jenkins and General Law. Longstreet favors Jenkins and holds Law accountable for the breakdown in command in the division, charging him and Law's ally, Jerome B. Robertson, with multiple charges and demanding a court-martial be held against both. Then there's the real betrayal. Lafayette McLaw, a longtime friend and former classmate at West Point. Longstreet removes him from command, citing a want of confidence in the efforts and plans which the commanding general has thought proper to adopt. The 1st Corps of the Army of Northern Virginia is at war with itself. James has no confidence in himself or any of his subordinates. Then there is Sickles, and it has been so long since we've seen him. What has he been up to? Well, in mid-November, the dam burst. General-in-Chief Henry Halleck released the Gettysburg Report, which sent shockwaves through the army. It carried on a dispute between Halleck and Hooker, and in one sentence, damned Sickles. General Sickles, misinterpreting his orders, instead of placing the Third Corps on the prolongation of the Second, had moved it nearly 3/4 of a mile in advance, an error which nearly proved fatal in battle. This is outrageous. The entire report is only 2,000 words, and it somehow found space to completely misinterpret the situation. It makes no reference to the initial vague order, nor the later order from Meade that Sickles could do as he pleases, within the limits of the general instructions I have given you. But Halleck sure wasn't too harsh on the other generals, celebrating those who handled their troops on the field with distinguished ability. And he sure loved Meade enough. To General Meade belongs the honor of a well-earned victory in one of the greatest and best-fought battles of the war. These officers don't know anything of real war. Oh, they all just stand back and get their reports while we all know who's the real one. God! Where could Halleck have gotten this idea from? Not from the Third Corps, which loves Sickles, nor even General Meade, who was never unduly critical of Daniel. At least to his face. But he is a West Pointer, and we know how those people are. Sickles is an outsider, a politician, and while Meade might be too scared to speak his own mind, he sure as hell spoke it to fellow Cabal member Halleck. Luckily for Sickles, Meade is weak. This week saw Congress come back to D.C., and thus will meet the Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War. Meade has been lax on the freeing of slaves, and Lee was able to escape after Gettysburg. These are both tools that can be used to get rid of the one man standing in the way of Sickles reuniting with his men. Sickles just now needs Congress to relaunch the committee, and they can investigate his conduct appropriately under the guise of the close-knit group of McClellanites that infest the officer corps. That's where the week ends, and let me finish up the Knoxville campaign. It happened. For a battle between two of the biggest names of the war, Longstreet and Burnside, it's anticlimactic. It was from start to finish a diversion from the actions at Chattanooga. Really, it was just a side theater, but it does have real effects. Burnside is leaving the command on a record high. His reputation has never been better, and Longstreet's corps has self-destructed. Then there is the Union Officer Corps. Sickles is on mission to break back into its ranks, if he has to tear down the whole rotten house. But his allies might not be as thoughtful as him. I'll see you next week.